Chapter 4. The Family Intervention. The day began like any other, or at least as normal as things could be, for Hitohito Tadano lately. He sat on the edge of his bed, running a hand through his hair, which now cascaded past his shoulders in soft, glossy waves that didn't belong on the head of an ordinary teenage boy. His reflection in the mirror, across the room, mocked him. Ow! It wasn't just the hair, his face, his skin. Even his body were changing in ways he couldn't explain, no matter how many excuses he tried to come up with. This wasn't stress. This wasn't puberty. This wasn't normal. He sighed, tugging at the hem of his hoodie. It was one of his baggiest, but even it couldn't fully hide the curves that had started appearing in places they had no business being. His chest, though still small, had a soft and undeniable swell, and his narrower waist only made it more obvious. He was thinner than he used to be, but his thighs were thicker, fuller, pressing against the fabric of his sweatpants in a way that made him cringe every time he looked down. Tadano Hitohito, he thought bitterly. Your body is betraying you. A knock on the door snapped him out of his thought. Hitohito, it's time for breakfast, his mother called. Come down before it gets cold. Coming, he shouted back, his voice cracking slightly. He winced. His voice had been doing that a lot lately, pitching up unexpectedly, sounding softer and higher than it ever had before. He cleared his throat a few times, hoping it would help, and headed downstairs. When he reached the kitchen, his mother was already seated at the table, sipping her tea. She looked up as he entered, her eyes narrowing slightly as they flicked over him. Hello, frozen. He knew that look. It was the look of a mother who was about to ask a lot of uncomfortable questions. Good morning, he said cautiously, sliding into his seat. Good morning, she replied, her tone light but suspicious. She set her cup down and folded her hands on the table. So, Hitohito, how are you feeling today? Tadano blinked. Fine, I guess. Really, she said, raising an eyebrow. Because you're looking different. Tadano's stomach dropped. Different how? His mother tilted her head, studying him intently. Well, for starters, your hair is longer than mine now. And your face. She leaned closer, squinting slightly. Your face is so smooth and delicate. Honestly, if I didn't know better, I'd think I was looking at a girl. She paused, her eyes widening slightly. Or, Komi-san. Tadano flinched, as if he'd been slapped. Wah. No, that's ridiculous. He stammered, tugging his hoodie tighter around himself. His mother didn't look convinced. Hitohito, she said, her voice soft but firm. You're not fooling anyone. I've been noticing these changes for weeks now. Your skin, your voice, your body. Her eyes flicked downward, and Tadano felt his entire face go red. It's not normal, sweetheart. Something's happening to you, and we need to talk about it. I don't know what you're talking about, Tadano said, his voice rising in pitch. It's just stress, or maybe a growth spurt. Yeah, that's it. A weird, totally normal growth spurt. His mother gave him a look that said, Do you really expect me to believe that? Tadano, she said, her tone almost maternal in its patience. I'm your mother. I've known you your entire life. I know what you're supposed to look like. And this? She gestured at him, her eyes lingering on the way his hoodie bunched awkwardly over his chest. Isn't it? Tadano slumped in his seat, defeated. Okay, fine, he muttered. I have noticed some changes. But I don't know why it's happening. Okay? It's just happening. His mother nodded, her expression softening. When did it start? Tadano hesitated, his mind flashing back to the school trip, to the shooting star, and the wish he had made. A few weeks ago, he said finally. It started small. My hair grew faster, my skin got smoother. But then it got worse. My face, my voice, He trailed off, gesturing helplessly at his body. His mother's eyes narrowed, thoughtfully. And how do you feel? Physically, I mean. Any pain? Discomfort? Not really, Tadano admitted. I mean, my chest has been kind of sore lately, and my hips feel weird sometimes. But other than that, I feel fine. His mother's gaze flicked to his chest, and Tadano felt his face heat up again. Sore how? She asked. Just tender, he said, squirming uncomfortably. Like, I don't know. It's hard to explain. His mother nodded slowly, her expression thoughtful. Well, it sounds like your body is adjusting. And if that's the case, we might need to make some adjustments of our own. Tadano frowned. What kind of adjustments? For starters, she said, a small smile tugging at her lips, you're going to need better support. A silk camisole maybe. And some matching panties. Mom? Tadano shouted, his voice cracking again. Are you serious? Of course I'm serious, she said, completely unfazed. If your chest is sore, it's probably because your body isn't getting the support it needs. And as for the panties, well, she gestured vaguely at his sweatpants. It's only a matter of time before those stop fitting properly. You might as well get used to it now. Tadano buried his face in his hands. This is a nightmare. Oh, don't be so dramatic, his mother said, patting his hand. It's not the end of the world. Besides, I've always wanted a daughter. This might be my chance. Mom! Tadano groaned, his face burning. His mother laughed, ruffling his hair. Relax, sweetheart. I'm just teasing. Mostly. Mostly? Tadano muttered under his breath, but his mother ignored him. Anyway, she said, standing up and brushing off her apron. I think it's time we got some outside help. I'm going to call the Komis and invite them over for dinner. If anyone can help us make sense of this, it's them. Tadano stared at her in horror. The Komis? Why them? His mother gave him a pointed look. Hitohito, you're turning into a carbon copy of their daughter. Don't you think they might have some insight into what's going on? Tadano opened his mouth to argue, but stopped himself. She had a point. A terrifying, mortifying point. Fine, he muttered. But, can we at least not make it weird? His mother smiled brightly. Oh, sweetheart, this whole situation is weird. But I'll do my best.